Question 631. To hold real property as a tenant in common, parties must A. Have undivided interests, B. Be married to each other, C. Have equal interests, D. Inhabit the property. Correct answer is A. Have undivided interests. Tenancy in common is a form of co-ownership where two or more individuals hold title to real property. The key characteristics are 1. Undivided interests. Each owner has the right to possess and use the entire property, even though their ownership percentage might be different. There are no specific, physically divided portions belonging exclusively to one co-tenant. 2. No right of survivorship. Unlike joint tenancy, if a tenant in common dies, their interest in the property passes to their heirs or is directed by their will. It's not automatically to the surviving co-tenants. 3. Unequal shares possible. Co-tenants can own different percentages of the property, e.g., one owns 60%, the other owns 40%. 4. Right to convey. Each tenant in common can sell, gift, or devise their individual interest in the property without the consent of the other co-tenants. There is no requirement for tenants in common to physically live on the property to be co-owners. It is an ownership interest, not necessarily a possessory one at all times for all owners. Therefore, the essential requirement for holding real property as tenants in common is that the parties have undivided interests in the property. Question 632. Surveys show that classified ads are most commonly used by people as their primary method for finding real estate properties. A. In their 50s, B. In their 30-40s, C. In their 20s, D. In all age groups. Correct answer is A. In their 50s. Younger individuals, particularly those in their 20s, are often very comfortable with online platforms and mobile apps for searching. While they might encounter classified ads, it's less likely to be their primary method compared to dedicated real estate websites and apps. Over the past couple of decades, the real estate search process has largely shifted from print classifieds to online platforms like Zillow, Realtor.com, Redfin, and Craigslist. These platforms offer more comprehensive listings, photos, virtual tours, and search filters. While individuals in their 50s and even 30-40s might still occasionally look at classifieds, they are also likely to utilize online resources extensively, often having adapted to these digital tools. While some individuals in all age groups might glance at classifieds, it's unlikely to be the primary method for a significant portion of those beyond their early adulthood, who have grown up with or adapted to online searching. Therefore, classified ads are likely to be relied upon most as a primary search method by a segment that might be less familiar with or have less access to sophisticated online tools, or those specifically looking for very local or niche listings that might still be advertised in print. This demographic is less likely to be the majority in their 20s in 2025, given the prevalence of online real estate platforms. However, it's important to note that surveys can vary in their methodology and findings. If specific recent survey data were available, it could provide a more definitive answer. Given the options and general trends, the most plausible answer, although perhaps counterintuitive at first glance, leans towards in their 20s if we consider a segment that might be utilizing a broader range of, sometimes less mainstream, resources, including potentially older habits they observed or more localized, less technologically advanced approaches. This is a nuanced question without specific survey data for 2025. Younger individuals are heavily online. Older individuals might have more ingrained habits of checking print media. Therefore, classifieds as a primary method might skew slightly older. Classified ads might still hold some relevance for an older demographic less comfortable with or trusting of online-only searches. Given this revised thought process, the answer might lean towards in their 50s. They might supplement online searches with classifieds or rely on them more if they are less digitally inclined. While online platforms dominate, Classified ads might still be a primary source for a segment of the population that is less tech-savvy or prefers traditional methods. This demographic is more likely to be in older age groups. Therefore, the most plausible answer is A, in their 50s. Question 633. The Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act, RESPA, designed to protect consumers from abuses by loan servicers, applies to all of the following, except A. Requiring lenders to provide loan applicants with good faith estimates of closing costs within 3 days of their application. B. Compelling closing agents make a uniform settlement statement available to the buyer at least 1 day before closing. C. Loan transactions being used for temporary financing, such as a bridge loan. D. A borrower being pressured to make excessive contributions to an escrow account designed to cover recurring costs like taxes and insurance. Correct answer is C. Loan transactions being used for temporary financing, such as a bridge loan. RESPA is a federal law that covers most federally related mortgage loans. Federally related mortgage loans, generally subject to RESPA, are secured by liens on residential properties like houses, condos, and manufactured homes. These loans are typically made by federally insured lenders or are insured, guaranteed by federal agencies such as FHA or VA, or are intended for sale to entities like Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac. However, RESPA specifically exempts certain types of loans, including 1. Temporary financing. This includes bridge loans, short-term loans used to finance the purchase of a new home before the sale of the borrower's existing home, and construction loans. 2. Business purpose loans. 3. Agricultural loans. 4. Loans on property of 25 acres or more. 5. Home equity lines of credit, HELOCs. 6. Reverse mortgages. Therefore, C. Loan transactions being used for temporary financing, such as a bridge loan, is the exception and is generally not covered by RESPA. Question 634. The parole evidence rule states that, in most situations, A. Oral agreements can always be used to modify written agreements. B. Written agreements take priority over oral agreements. C. An oral agreement is a quasi-contract. D. Oral agreements are always invalid. Correct answer is B. Written agreements take priority over oral agreements. The parole evidence rule aims to prevent oral agreements from altering the terms of a final written contract. While there are exceptions, e.g., subsequent modifications, prior or simultaneous oral agreements usually cannot change the written terms. A quasi-contract, also known as an implied-in-law contract, is not an actual contract but a legal obligation imposed by a court to prevent unjust enrichment. It arises when there's no agreement, written or oral, but one party has conferred a benefit on another under circumstances where it would be unfair for the recipient to retain the benefit without paying for it. Oral agreements can be valid and legally binding, especially for certain types of contracts that are not required to be in writing under the statute of frauds. However, they may be harder to prove in court due to a lack of written documentation. The parole evidence rule is a principle in contract law that governs the admissibility of evidence of prior or contemporaneous oral, or written, agreements when a written contract exists. The parole evidence rule generally prevents the introduction of prior or simultaneous agreements in court if they contradict, modify, or add to the terms of a written contract intended to be the complete and final agreement. This rule aims to ensure that the written contract stands as the definitive record of the parties' obligations. Question 635. The likeliest person to incur a prepayment penalty in a real estate deal is the A. Seller, B. Borrower, C. Lender, D. Owner. Correct answer is A. Seller. Alienation clause. Due on sale clause. Clause in a mortgage contract requires the borrower, who is often the seller, to repay the entire outstanding loan balance if the property is sold or transferred. This effectively acts as a prepayment of the loan triggered by the sale. Therefore, in the context of a sale that triggers a due on sale clause, the seller is the likeliest person to be responsible for repaying the entire loan amount, which can be seen as a form of prepayment penalty in that it necessitates paying off the loan earlier than the original schedule. The lender is the one who receives the prepayment penalty, not the one who incurs it. Question 636. The longest length of time a lease will be valid for is A. 51 years for a farm property, B. 99 years for an urban property, C. 50 years for either farm or urban properties, D. Both A and B. Correct answer is D. Both A and B. Based on California law, California Civil Code Section 717 specifically limits the lease term for agricultural or horticultural land to a maximum of 51 years. California law also sets a limit on the lease term for town or city lots. While it's often stated as 99 years, the exact wording in California Civil Code Section 718 refers to leasing land for the purpose of erecting buildings thereon. Historically and practically, these leases are often structured for a maximum of 99 years. Leases for oil, mineral or gas production also cannot exceed 99 years. Question 637. When an asking price is initially based on a listing contract, it will probably A. Have a high-end market value, B. Have a low-end market value, C. Have a mid-range market value, D. Not reflect the sales of other properties in the same neighborhood. Correct answer is A. Have a high-end market value. Sellers generally want to get the highest possible price for their property. Therefore, the initial asking price, often set in consultation with the listing agent, tends to be at the higher end of what the seller believes the market will bear. Setting a slightly higher initial price allows room for negotiation with potential buyers. Buyers often expect to offer less than the asking price, and a higher starting point accommodates this expectation. An initial high asking price can also serve to test the market. It allows the seller and agent to gauge buyer interest and see if there are any offers at or near that price. If not, they can adjust the price later. While a good agent will advise on a realistic price based on market analysis, they also need to consider the seller's desires. Starting slightly high can keep the seller happy initially. While the ultimate goal is to reach a price within the fair market value range, the initial asking price as it's introduced to the market is strategically often set towards the higher end of that range. It's less common to start with a low-end price unless there's a specific strategy for generating multiple offers quickly or if the seller needs a fast sale. A mid-range price is possible but might not leave as much room for negotiation or capitalize on initial buyer enthusiasm. A price that doesn't reflect comparable sales would likely deter buyers and is generally not a sound strategy. Question 638. Land includes the following rights. A. Water rights, B. Mineral rights, C. Surface rights, D. All of the above. Correct answer is D. All of the above. Land ownership encompasses more than just the surface of the property. It includes a bundle of rights, which can be separated or held together. These rights generally include A. Water rights. The right to use water on or bordering the property, although these rights are often governed by state law and can be complex, especially here in California. B. Mineral rights. The right to explore for and extract minerals found beneath the surface of the land. These rights can be owned separately from surface rights. C. Surface rights. The right to use and develop the surface of the land, including building on it, farming it, etc. Question 639. If an appraiser increases the capitalization rate on income property, that means the appraiser is predicting a A. Higher gross income. B. Higher return. C. Higher degree of risk. D. Higher net income. Correct answer is C. Higher degree of risk. Capitalization rate, cap rate, is a ratio used in real estate valuation to estimate the potential return on an investment property. It's calculated by dividing the property's net operating income, NOI, by its current market value. When an appraiser increases the cap rate, it signifies a decrease in the perceived value of the property relative to its income potential. This can be due to several factors, including greater than increased risk associated with the property, e.g., vacancy rates, potential for lower future income. Greater than increased risk associated with the property, e.g., vacancy rates, potential for lower future income. Greater than higher operating expenses anticipated for the property. Greater than lower overall market demand for similar properties. Therefore, a higher cap rate suggests a higher degree of risk associated with the property, leading to a lower predicted return on investment. Question 640. The most efficient approach for appraising a library is the A. Comparables method. B. Market data method. C. Reproduction cost method. D. Income capitalization method. Correct answer is C. Reproduction cost method. Comparables method, also known as the sales comparison approach or market data method, relies on analyzing recent sales of similar properties. Libraries are not typically sold on the open market, and finding truly comparable sales of other libraries can be challenging due to their unique nature, design, and purpose. Income capitalization method estimates value based on the income the property generates. Libraries are typically non-profit public service facilities and do not produce income in the traditional real estate sense, like rent. While they might have some revenue streams, e.g., fines, fees, these are not the primary basis for their value. Reproduction cost method estimates the cost of constructing an exact replica of the existing building at today's prices. It's including materials, labor, and overhead, and then deducts depreciation for physical deterioration, functional obsolescence, and external obsolescence. Libraries are often unique, special-purpose buildings with specific design features and construction, making direct comparison to other sales, comparables, difficult.